You were taught that being nice would protect you, that politeness was a virtue, that if you just kept your head down, smiled through the discomfort, and put everyone else first, the world would reward you with respect, love, and success. That was a lie. And somewhere deep inside, you already know it. You feel it every time you say yes when your body screams no. Every time you apologize for taking up space. Every time you watch someone with half your kindness get twice your respect. Politeness was never about morality. It was about control. It was a leash placed around your neck the moment you were old enough to understand reward and punishment. Be nice. Be quiet. Don't make waves. Don't upset anyone. Smile. Apologize. Shrink. And you did. Because that's what good people do, right? Wrong. Niceness without boundaries isn't kindness. It's slavery dressed in a smile. It's the operating system that keeps you manageable, predictable, and most importantly, useful to people who have no intention of ever returning the favor. Think about it. When was the last time someone asked how you were doing and actually waited for a real answer? When was the last time your needs came first without you feeling crushing guilt? When was the last time you said no without spending the next 3 hours justifying it in your head? You can't remember, because you've been conditioned not to. Trained like a dog to fetch emotional comfort for others while your own needs rot in silence. Here's the truth they never told you. Politeness is a currency that only works in one direction. You spend it constantly, exhausting yourself to keep the peace, manage feelings, and smooth over tension. But when you need it back, suddenly everyone's busy. Suddenly you're asking too much. Suddenly you're the problem. Machiavelli understood this 500 years ago. He wrote that men are quick to change allegiance, that they love at their convenience but fear at yours. Translation: people will take everything you offer as long as it costs them nothing. The moment you require something in return, you become inconvenient, difficult, too much. So they trained you early, taught you that your value comes from how little trouble you cause. How much can you absorb? How well you can disappear into the background of other people's lives while making them feel seen, heard, and validated. You became an emotional vending machine. Insert crisis, receive comfort. Insert demand, receive compliance. Insert guilt, receive apology. And the worst part, you thought this made you good. Comment the word enough if you're tired of apologizing for existing. Let's call this what it really is. People-pleasing isn't a personality trait. It's not generosity or compassion or emotional intelligence. It's a disease. A psychological infection that took root in your childhood and metastasized into every corner of your adult life. You learned it young. Maybe you had a parent whose love felt conditional. Maybe you were the peacemaker in a chaotic home. Maybe you discovered that being agreeable kept you safe, while being authentic got you punished. So you adapted. You learned to read rooms like a survival skill, learned to shape yourself into whatever the moment required, learned that your feelings were negotiable but everyone else's were sacred. And it worked. For a while. You got praised for being easygoing, reliable, low maintenance, such a good friend, so understanding, so mature. But here's what no one told you. Every time you betrayed your own boundaries to keep someone else comfortable, you taught your nervous system that you are not safe to defend. Every time you swallowed your truth to avoid conflict, you taught yourself that your voice is less valuable than temporary peace. Every time you sacrificed your needs for someone who wouldn't do the same, you carved a deeper groove in the pattern that says your worth is measured by your usefulness. This is how the disease spreads. Through repetition, through reward. Through the small daily acts of self-abandonment that you've rebranded as virtue. You tell yourself you're just being kind, that you're a good person, that you don't want to be difficult or demanding or selfish. But listen closely. There's a difference between kindness and self-erasure. Kindness comes from abundance, from a place of choice, from genuine care that doesn't cost you your dignity. What are you doing? That's not kindness. That's fear wearing a halo, fear of rejection, fear of abandonment, Fear of being too much or not enough. Fear that if people see the real you, the one with needs and limits and edges, they'll leave. So you sand down those edges. You perform endless empathy. You become a master at managing everyone's emotions except your own. And the truly insidious part? Society celebrates this, calls it emotional labor, calls it being the bigger person, calls it maturity. They gave your sickness a virtue name so you'd never think to cure it. Think about the relationships in your life right now. How many of them would survive if you stopped performing, if you stopped being endlessly available, if you stopped prioritizing their comfort over your sanity? Be honest, most of them wouldn't make it a month because they were never built on who you are. They were built on what you provide. The person they know isn't you. It's the customer service version of you. The one that never complains, never demands, never disrupts. The disease convinced you this was love. That sacrifice without reciprocity was noble, that your pain was less important than their convenience. But here's the reality. People-pleasing doesn't make you more lovable. It makes you more useful. And useful is not the same as valued. Useful gets exploited. Useful gets taken for granted. Useful gets called at midnight and ignored at noon. You've been infected with the belief that your worth is directly proportional to how little of yourself you require others to handle. Smaller you make yourself, the more room there is for them to love you. That's not love. That's an occupation. Let me show you exactly how this plays out. Because niceness without boundaries doesn't just fail to get you respect, it actively teaches people that they don't deserve it. Here's the harsh social truth that no one wants to say out loud. Humans are status-reading machines. We're constantly, unconsciously calculating who has value and who doesn't, who can be pushed and who pushes back, who requires careful treatment and who accepts whatever they're given. And every single time you compromise your boundaries to keep someone comfortable, you send a clear signal. You broadcast that you are low status, that you can be used without consequence, that your needs are negotiable while theirs are not. This isn't cynical, it's evolutionary psychology. For thousands of years, humans survived by reading social hierarchies and positioning themselves accordingly. The person who commands respect gets resources, protection, and priority. The person who signals they'll accept anything gets exactly that. Anything. The leftovers, the afterthoughts, the bare minimum. Your niceness is a neon sign that says, I will accept poor treatment because I'm afraid of the alternative. And people read it. Not consciously, not with malice, but they read it all the same. Watch what happens when you're endlessly accommodating. People start showing up late. They cancel plans without apology. They vent for an hour but have 5 minutes when you need to talk. They ask for favors they'd never grant in return. They take and take and take, then act surprised when you finally mention you're empty. This isn't because they're bad people. It's because you taught them this was acceptable. You taught them that your boundaries are made of tissue paper, that your time is less valuable than theirs, that you exist to absorb their overflow. Machiavelli said it plainly. Men are less careful about offending someone who makes himself loved than someone who makes himself feared. Because love is held by a chain of obligatio, which is broken whenever it serves their purpose. But fear preserves you by a dread of punishment which never fails. Strip away the Renaissance language, and here's what he's saying. When people know you'll forgive anything, tolerate anything, accept anything, they lose respect. Not because they're evil, but because you've removed all consequence from mistreating you. Your kindness became a green light for disrespect. Think about someone in your life who gets treated with care, someone whose time is honored, whose boundaries are respected, whose no actually means no. Are they the nicest person in the room, or are they the person who makes it clear through actio, not words, that poor treatment will not be tolerated? I guarantee it's the latter, because respect isn't given to the most agreeable. It's given to those who demand it through their behavior, through their unwillingness to participate in their own disrespect. You thought being nice would earn you a seat at the table, but tables are for people who know their value. You've been eating scraps off the floor and calling it a meal. Here's the mechanism. Every time you say yes when you mean no, you deposit a coin in the bank of contempt. Not from them, from you. You lose respect for yourself. Your subconscious registers the betrayal, registers that you'll sell yourself out for temporary approval. And that self-contempt leaks out in 1,000 subtle ways. In your posture, in your voice, in the way you can't hold eye contact when you should be able to, in the apologies that tumble out before you've even determined if you did anything wrong. People sense it. They might not articulate it, but they feel it. They feel that you don't believe you deserve better, so they don't give you better. This is the trap. You be nice, hoping it will make people value you. But niceness without self-respect teaches them the opposite. It teaches them you have no bottom, no line they can cross, no point at which you'll prioritize yourself. And humans, consciously or not, will test that line. They'll push a little, see what you'll tolerate. And when you tolerate it, when you smile through it, when you make it easy for them, they push a little more. Not because they're monsters, because you're teaching them that this is who you are. Someone who exists to make their life easier at the cost of your own. The most brutal part, the more you give, the less they value it. Because sacrifice without cost signals low value. If you'll do anything for anyone at any time, then doing something for them specifically means nothing. Your generosity became worthless because you gave it to everyone without discretion. You wanted to be loved, but you made yourself useful instead. And useful doesn't get remembered, protected, or prioritized. Useful gets used until it breaks, then replaced. Now we arrive at the part that makes people uncomfortable. The part they don't teach in school, or therapy, or self-help books that want you to feel good. Machiavelli's entire philosophy was built on one forbidden truth. It is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both. People lose their minds over that line. They call it cold, ruthless, evil. But Machiavelli wasn't advocating cruelty. He was documenting reality. He watched kingdoms rise and fall. Watched beloved leaders get betrayed the moment it is convenient. Watched men who commanded respect through strength survive when nice guys got destroyed. He learned what every person in a position of power eventually learns. People's love is fickle. It lasts exactly as long as you're useful to them. But fear, respect, the knowledge that there are consequences for crossing you, that's reliable. That's what keeps people honest. Now apply this to your life. Not in terms of dominating others, but in terms of commanding respect, in terms of teaching people through your behavior that you have standards. Think about the people you respect most. Are they the ones who never say no? The ones who absorb endless nonsense with a smile? The ones who apologize for everything? Or are they the people who have clear boundaries? Who says what they mean? Who doesn't soften their truth to spare your feelings? Who makes it known without being cruel that they require a certain level of treatment? You respect them because they respect themselves, because they don't negotiate their worth, because there's a line and everyone knows where it is. That's not being mean. That's being sovereign. That's understanding that respect is not given freely. It's commanded through consistency, boundaries, and the refusal to accept what you don't deserve. Machiavelli said, "Men judge by appearances and outcomes, not by intentions. Your intentions to be kind, to be good, to be accommodating mean nothing if the outcome is that people treat you poorly. You can have the best heart in the world. If you don't back it with boundaries, you'll be walked over by people with half your integrity." Leadership, even the leadership of your own life, requires that people know you're not to be tested. Not through aggression, but through calm, consistent enforcement of doppio. At you will and won't tolerate. The desire to be liked destroys this immediately. Because the moment your need for approval enters the equation, people sense it. They sense you'll compromise. They sense you're negotiable. And negotiable means low value. Look at any leader, any person who commands a room. They're not trying to make everyone happy. They're not shape-shifting to match the energy. They're not apologizing for taking up space. They're clear, direct, unbothered by disapproval. That doesn't mean they're cruel. It means they've accepted a fundamental truth. You cannot be respected and desperate for approval at the same time. The two states are incompatible. Respect requires that you're willing to lose people, willing to let them be uncomfortable, willing to prioritize your standards over their temporary feelings. And that's terrifying for someone who spent their whole life believing their safety depends on everyone liking them. But here's what happens when you let go of that need. When you stop trying to be loved and start requiring respect. People recalibrate. They stop testing you. They stop assuming you'll bend. They start treating your time, your energy, and your boundaries as real. Not everyone will. Some people are only in your life because you made it easy. Those people will leave. Good. They were never yours to begin with. The ones who stay, the ones who rise to meet your new standard, those are real relationships. Built on mutual respect, not one-sided sacrifice. Machiavelli's truth isn't about being cruel. It's about being unmovable, about understanding that your worth is not up for debate, and that people will treat you exactly how you train them to treat you. So what's the alternative to endless niceness? What do you do when the conditioning runs so deep you don't even know who you are without it? You embrace what they taught you to fear. You embrace rudeness. Not rudeness as cruelty, rudeness as refusal, as the controlled, intentional violation of social expectations that were designed to keep you small. Because here's what rudeness actually is. It's saying no without justification. It's correcting someone who's out of line. It's prioritizing your needs without apology. It's meeting disrespect with consequences instead of understanding. Society calls this rude because it disrupts the smooth functioning of your exploitation. Think about what you've been trained to consider rude. Declining an invitation without a lengthy explanation, telling someone they're wrong, not laughing at a joke that isn't funny, ignoring a message you don't want to answer, setting a boundary without softening it with apologies and disclaimers. None of those things is actually rude. They're just not compliant. And compliance has been rebranded as politeness, so you'd never question it. Real politeness is respect for others' dignity. What you've been taught is performance for others' comfort at the expense of your own. Strategic rudeness is the reclaiming of your right to exist without constantly managing everyone else's experience of you. Watch what happens when you deploy it. When someone asks you for something you don't want to do, and you say no. Just no. Not, I'd love to, oh, but I can't. Not, let me check my schedule. Not, sorry, I'm so busy. Just a clean, unapologetic no. The air shifts. The power dynamic recalibrates instantly because you just did something they weren't expecting. You refuse to play the game where your needs are negotiable and theirs are urgent. You signaled that you are not a resource to be managed. Most people will respect it immediately. The ones who don't, the ones who push back, who get offended, who try to make you feel guilty, those people were relying on your compliance. They just revealed themselves. Here's the principle. Bluntness is a hierarchy reset. Every time you speak your truth without softening it, without performing empathy you don't feel, without managing their reaction, you signal confidence. You signal that you trust your value enough not to beg for their approval. And humans, whether they like it or not, respond to confidence. They respond to clarity. They respond to someone who knows what they want and isn't afraid to name it. This doesn't mean being an asshole for sport. It means being honest when honesty is required. It means matching your words to your actual feelings instead of the feelings you think you should have. It means saying that doesn't work for me instead of I wish I could, but. It means saying I disagree instead of I see your point, but maybe also. It means saying stop instead of it's okay when it's not okay. Every time you choose bluntness over performance, you reclaim a piece of your power. You teach your nervous system that you can survive someone's disapproval, that you don't need to manage their emotions to be safe. This is the practice. Not waiting until you feel confident, but acting as if you already are and letting your nervous system catch up. Rudeness, the real kind, the kind they taught you to fear, is just the refusal to participate in your own diminishment. It's the decision that you'd rather be respected than liked, that you'd rather be real than agreeable. And the most surprising thing? Once you start doing this, once you stop apologizing for existing, most people don't even push back. They just adjust. Because they were never testing you maliciously. They were just filling the space you allowed them to fill. The moment you take up your rightful space, they simply move over. If this made you uncomfortable, that's the old version of you dying. But let's not pretend this is easy. Because the second you stop being agreeable, the second you start setting boundaries and speaking your truth and refusing to perform, you will face resistance. Not from everyone, but from the people who benefited most from your people-pleasing, from the ones who built their comfort on your silence, from the ones who need you small to feel big. They will call you selfish, difficult, cold, changed, not yourself anymore, and they'll do it in ways that activate every ounce of guilt you've been programmed to feel. They'll look hurt, confused, disappointed. They'll remind you of all the times you said yes before. They'll wonder out loud what happened to the person you used to be. This is the cost of disagreeableness. This is the tax you pay for reclaiming your authority, and here's the test. Your commitment to your new boundaries will be measured by your ability to withstand this resistance without folding. Because the guilt will be crushing at first. Every time you say no, every time you correct someone, every time you prioritize yourself, your conditioning will scream that you're being cruel, that you're hurting people, that you're becoming everything you swore you'd never be. That voice is not your conscience. That's your programming. That's years of training trying to pull you back into compliance. The truth is, you're not being cruel. You're being unavailable for exploitation. And to people who benefited from that exploitation, your boundaries feel like an attack. Let them feel that way, because their discomfort is not your responsibility. Their adjustment to you having standards is not your project to manage. Their disappointment that you're no longer a doormat is not evidence that you're doing something wrong. It's evidence that you're doing something right. Machiavelli observed that whoever is responsible for another becoming powerful ruins himself, because that power is created either by skill or by force, and both are subject to the one who has become powerful. Apply this to people-pleasing. When you made yourself small so others could feel big, when you absorbed their problems so they didn't have to grow, when you enabled their dysfunction with your endless accommodation, you created a dynamic where they need you to be weak. Your strength threatens their comfort. Your boundaries require them to be responsible for themselves. Your new refusal to carry their emotional weight means they actually have to deal with their own lives. Of course, they resist. You just removed the crutch. So expect pushback, expect guilt trips, expect people to test your resolve, to see if this is real or just a phase. Expect relationships to end. Expect some people to walk away the moment you stop being convenient. This is not failure. This is filtration. This is the natural consequence of refusing to be everyone's emotional support animal. The people who leave were never there for you. They were there for what you did for them. And now that the supply has been cut off, they're moving on to someone else who hasn't figured it out yet. Good. Let them go. Make space for people who can handle you having needs. The guilt will fade. It fades every time you enforce a boundary, and the world doesn't end. Every time you say no, and the relationship either survives or doesn't, you survive either way. Your nervous system learns through repetition. Right now, it believes that other people's disapproval is life-threatening, so you have to show it again and again that you can be disagreeable and still be okay. Eventually, your guilt stops coming. Eventually, you enforce boundaries without the internal battle. Eventually, you just exist as someone who knows their worth, and the resistance stops registering as a crisis. But you have to walk through the fire to get there. You have to be willing to be the villain end someone else's story. You have to accept that some people will decide you're too much or not enough, and you have to be okay with that, because the alternative is spending the rest of your life performing for people who will never be satisfied, who will take everything you give and resent you for not giving. Or, that's not a life, that's a slow disappearance. So here's what reclaiming your authority actually looks like. It's not one dramatic moment. It's not a speech or a confrontation or a grand declaration. It's 1,000 small decisions where you choose yourself. It starts with your time. You begin protecting it like it's sacred, because it is. You stop saying yes to invitations you don't want to accept. You stop filling every empty hour with other people's needs. You stop being endlessly available. You create space. Space to think, space to rest, space to exist without performing productivity or service. And when people ask for that time, you evaluate honestly, not what will make them happy. What do you actually want? What serves you? What feels aligned? And you answer from that place. Without apology, without justification, without the novel-length explanation designed to manage their feelings about your decision. Next, your voice. You stop swallowing your opinions to keep the peace. You stop agreeing with things you don't believe. You stop letting incorrect statements go unchallenged because it's easier than speaking up. You practice saying what's true for you, even when it's uncomfortable, even when people disagree, even when it creates tension. You learn that tension is not the same as danger. That disagreement doesn't mean relationship death. That you can say, I see it differently, and the world continues turning. Then your standards. You stop accepting behavior you don't respect. You stop making excuses for people who consistently show you who they are. Why? Stop giving endless chances to people who never change. You become someone who notices patterns and believes them, who sees when respect is missing and doesn't explain it away, who walks away from situations that require you to shrin. This isn't cruelty. This is discernment. This is understanding that not everyone deserves access to you, that some people have earned distance. That protection is a form of self-love. Finally, self-permission. You stop waiting for approval to want what you want, to feel what you feel, to need what you need. You permit yourself to be human, to have limits, to be imperfect, to prioritize yourself without it being a moral failure. You become your own authority, the person who decides what's acceptable in your life, what stays and what goes, what you'll tolerate and what you won't. This is sovereignty, not over others, but over yourself, over your time, your energy, your standards, your existence. And it requires you to let go of the need for consensus, to accept that some people will think you're wrong, selfish, too much, or not enough. To be okay with that because you'd rather be authentic than approved of. Machiavelli said a ruler must know how not to be good, not because goodness is bad, but because the appearance of goodness without the backbone to enforce standards leads to destruction. You don't need to be cruel, but you do need to be willing to disappoint people, to let them be uncomfortable, to prioritize your well-being over their convenience. That's the shift, from reactive to sovereign, from people-pleaser to person with boundaries, from useful to valued. It happens slowly, then all at once. You make one decision, then another, then another. Each one reinforces that you are capable of handling the consequences of being yourself. And one day, you realize you're not exhausted anymore. You're not resentful. You're not carrying Eve Arione's emotions while ignoring your own. You're just present. In your own life, ask yourself, without apology, that's what reclaimed authority feels like. Not loud, not aggressive, just solid, certain, unmovable. So what does the final form look like? What kind of person emerges when you kill the people-pleaser and build something new? The unapologetic man. The person who no longer negotiates his worth. He doesn't explain his decisions. He makes them and moves forward. He doesn't justify his boundaries. He simply has them and enforces them without drama. When he says no, it's complete. No wavering, no guilt, no opening for negotiation. Just a clear, clean boundary. When he disagrees, he says so, calmly, without needing to convince anyone. He states his perspective and allows others to have theirs without needing everyone to align. When he's disrespected, he addresses it immediately. Not with anger or defensiveness, but with clear consequence. He removes access, he ends conversations, he walks away. He's not interested in being liked by everyone. He's interested in being respected by the right people, the ones who can meet him at his level, the ones who don't require him to diminish himself to make them comfortable. He doesn't manage emotions. Not his own, and certainly not anyone else's. He feels what he feels. He lets others feel what they feel. He doesn't perform empathy, yet he doesn't have or fake understanding. Gee, does he feel? He's honest, sometimes uncomfortably so, because he's learned that temporary discomfort is better than long-term resentment. That being said, the hard thing now prevents bigger problems later. He knows his value isn't up for debate. He doesn't seek validation. He doesn't need constant reassurance. He doesn't check in to see if he's still approved of. He simply exists as someone who knows who he is and doesn't apologize for it. This isn't arrogance. Arrogance is loud, defensive, needs to prove itself. This quiet confidence, the kind that doesn't need an audience, the kind that simply operates from a foundation of self-respect so solid that other people's opinions don't shake it. He's become someone whom other people adjust to, not someone who constantly adjusts to others. Not through force or manipulation, but through sheer consistency of character. When he enters a room, people feel it. Not because he demands attention, but because he's not trying to disappear. He takes up his space without apology. He's stopped performing, stopped pretending, stopped shape-shifting to match what he thinks people want from him. He's just himself, unapologetically, consistently, without negotiation, and the most powerful part, he's okay with people not liking it. He's okay with being too much for some and not enough for others. He's okay with being misunderstood, judged, and dismissed, because he's no longer measuring his worth by external validation. He's no longer sourcing his sense of self from whether people approve. He's sovereign, self-determined, internally referenced. This is the man you become when you kill the pleaser. Not cruel, not cold, not heartless, just free. Free from the exhausting performance, free from the endless accommodation, free from the prison of trying to be everything to everyone while being nothing to yourself. That's the target. That's what you're building toward with every boundary you set, every time you choose yourself, every moment you refuse to participate in your own diminishment. So let's end where we began, with the cold, hard truth that will either destroy you or rebuild you. The people pleaser inside you has to die. Not metaphorically, not partially, completely. That version of you that apologizes for existing, that seeks approval like oxygen, that sacrifices its truth to keep temporary peace, cannot coexist with the person you're trying to become. One of them has to go, and if you don't kill the pleaser will kill you. Slowly, through 1,000 small betrayals, through years of resentment, through a life lived for everyone else while you disappear. This is necessary violence, psychological violence, the kind that feels like destruction but is actually liberation, because that pleaser isn't you. It never was. It's a survival mechanism that outlived its usefulness, its armor that became a cage. It's a strategy that worked when you were powerless and destroys you now that you're not. Killing it means accepting loss. Some people will leave, some relationships will end, some opportunities will close. You will be called selfish, difficult, and changed. Let them call you whatever they want, because on the other side of that death is something they can never take from you. Power, real power, not over others but over your own life. The power to choose, to refuse, to demand, to exist without permission. The power that comes from knowing you don't need anyone's approval to take up space, that you can survive disapproval, rejection, judgment, and still be okay. The power of someone who finally stopped negotiating their worth and started enforcing it. Machiavelli understood that power is not given. It's taken, not through force, but through the refusal to accept powerlessness. Through the decision that you will no longer be managed, predicted, or controlled. You take your power back by becoming someone who can no longer be used. by removing yourself from the market of people who'll do anything to be liked. So kill the pleaser. Starve it of the approval it craves, deny it the validation it seeks, refuse to feed it with more self-betrayal, and watch what grows in its place. Watch yourself become someone whom people approach carefully, hooch, respect automatically, who they don't test because they know the answer. You become formidable, not through aggression, through absolute clarity about who you are and what you require. That's the transformation. From desperate for approval to deserving of respect, from useful to valuable, from people pleaser to powerful presence. Drop the word sovereign in the comments if you're ready for this shift. And if this video made you realize how much of your life you've spent managing everyone else's experience while ignoring your own, if it showed you that your niceness was costing you everything you actually want, if it permitted you to finally put yourself first, then subscribe. Subscribe if you're done being useful and ready to be formidable, because the pleaser in you is already dying. You felt it the moment you recognized yourself in these words. You felt it when you realized how much you've given away. You felt it when you understood that everything you thought made you good was actually keeping you weak. Now finish the job, kill it completely, and step into the version of yourself that's been waiting underneath all that performance. The one who doesn't apologize for existing, who doesn't shrink to fit, who doesn't negotiate worth, the sovereign self, the unapologetic presence, the person who finally chose themselves. That's who you become when the pleaser dies. And that person changes everything.